Local board, advisory board of the Eastern Shore Community College, very much appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules to come. And we have Dr. Shaeffer, I apologize.
No, I did that to you.
Dr. Jim Shaeffer, who has had an excellent day, and as well as his wife, who is being able to enjoy the shore. We showcase the shore for all the spouses, significant others of the candidates, because that's very important. So ultimately, this process will lead to an offer, and we want the spouse, significant other, to be as excited as the candidate about this wonderful opportunity. So without any further ado, I'll have some closing comments to make, but Dr. Shaeffer will give a self-intro, and then we'll start into questions and answers. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Want to Ted, and Jeff, and Betty, and Bill, thank you so much for hosting me. You've done Betty's not here. Oh, there she is.
The other back in New Jersey.
Anyway, you guys have done a great job. So thank you very, very much. And the fact that I'm not going to get to the golf course and my wife is, will be reflected in my evaluation. Well, thank you all for taking time. This has been really a great couple of days. I have had the opportunity to have dinner at the Northampton Hotel. That was spectacular. I was forced to try the Cape Charles rye and the Cape Charles bourbon, and survived, and I will tell you the rye is the way to go. I had an opportunity to have breakfast this morning with the leadership team, and in that bag is leftover quiche for me to take home. That's one of the things you'll learn about me is I'm kind of like a dog with a bone. I'll start saying something, and it sometimes works out. And got a chance to meet with the students, and unfortunately had 2 students there, but yet they provided some great insights into the college. From there, I got a chance to tour the facilities, and maybe we can talk about this some more after I'm done introducing myself, because I haven't gotten to that point yet. Is to see the new building. And I see that as a beacon that we need to take advantage of moving forward. And had a wonderful lunch. I think I had lunch with the board, and I can't wait to go back where we had lunch so I know exactly what I had, but it was a great conversation. Then I came back and I met with the faculty and the staff, and I tried to share with them some of the dreams and vision I had for moving this forward, and now meeting with the community. So let me introduce myself in a way that's, I'm not going to spend time talking to you like this is what I did on my summer vacation, you know, what I did from '79 to whatever. But what I'm going to talk to you about is 2 things. One is, why me? The second one is, why this position? And so, the why me part is, I have spent 4 years, I've spent a few decades providing leadership at 4 institutions for divisions of continuing ed. And what is maybe not clear is that that mission of being responsible for a division of continuing education looks a whole lot like leading a community college. Because what we care about is getting people market ready for jobs. We care about economic development. We care about workforce development. We care about students who want to do a degree completion. We care about working with adults. My passion is to work with those who are underserved. And because we do that, and most 4-year institutions may do that, but that's not their central mission, then we have to come up with ways to serve students, because they're busy serving 18 to 22-year-olds. So we've come up with ways to serve those students. So at the end of the day, I have been in a non-traditional setting doing what I do within a traditional 4-year institution. So that's about me. That's my passion. So what about this job? Well, having told you about myself, one of the things that's happened with this opportunity is I actually have an opportunity to take a leadership position at an institution where the mission actually reflects my passion. This is an opportunity, because it's so clear what needs to be done over the next 3 years, that to be able to have that opportunity is one that I never thought I would have. So why this position? It really is at the root of my passions. And now that I've talked to lots of people, it is clear that it aligns with your passions as well. So that's my introduction, and I will take questions as you may have them.
So your day here so far has confirmed that passion.
Yes, sir. Good.
Excellent. It's good to hear.
And so for some of you, you may have heard me say this before, but I'm sure it bears worth repeating, right?
Excellent.
Yes.
Robert? And we would ask everybody to provide a self-intro, so Dr. Shaeffer can get an indication from whom you are representing as far as the community.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, John. Doctor, I'm Robert Crockett. I'm on the Accomack County Board of Supervisors, retired sheriff here for a number of years, and then went on the move from the executive side of local government to the legislative side of local government. And part of the legislative side is we help fund, to a certain extent, the community college, the new facility that's being constructed. Accomack and Northampton County appropriated $1 million for the site work, and we contribute, we fund this a small part on a year-to-year basis for the community college. So that's where I come from. I would have a couple of questions for you. The first would be, what are your goals for the first 12 months if you're chosen? And the second would be, as you well know, we're in a very serious 3-year period with the community college, and one thing that is really concerning to me is the possibility of us losing our identity. We don't want to become a branch of the Togwood Community College. So my second question is, have you ever been in a position similar to this with the challenges that this community college is facing? And if you have, what did you do to address that?
So I'm trying to pick out the 3 or 4 questions that are in there. And yes, I've been in a similar situation, and so I'm going to almost kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Please.
All right. And for those of you who listened to me earlier today, you're going to hear something very similar. So here are your 2 questions. One is, in that first year, what would you do? Recognizing that we've got to move fast, we've got a 3-year. The second piece of that, do I have experience with it? What I'm going to tell you about that experience relates directly to what I would do as president. And then the third piece we'll come to later, and that is, we don't just want to be a satellite of TCC. Did I capture it?
You did.
All right. So that's all I have to say about that.
You listened well.
Please tell Peggy. That's a different story. So let me tell you a story. And that is that, have I ever been in a situation where we were at this edge and we needed to do something and we needed to do it fast? Yes. Was it just like this? Not exactly. But it had to do with enrollment, it had to do with money, it had to do with time. So the story is this, is that when I was at the University of North Dakota, and any of you could probably tell the story at this point.
There was a flood.
There we go.
I lived in season.
1997.
Beth, nurses are good listeners, right? All right, that's up
There
to
we go.
Beth.
So-
That also proved you speak very clearly.
Yeah, well, I made it all up too. So, it was North Dakota, it was 1997, and we had a flood. And what happened is that we had to evacuate East Grand Forks and Grand Forks. And we had to shut down UND 4 weeks early and send everybody home. And in many ways, what happened was that the faculty and staff just went wherever they went. And so, over the next 2 months, Division of Continuing Ed and others worked hard to be able to get the university back on its feet. The tricky part for me in this situation is I run a self-support unit. And we spent 2 months paying staff to be able to get this university on its feet. And, as somebody said in the back as they were paying attention, we reached a point where we only had $70,000 in our savings account. And I thought, oh my gosh, we're not gonna make payroll. And at that point, you can imagine as a leader, the faces of those individuals that are in your unit, you see them, and you know their families, and you're thinking, we've got to do something, and we've got to do it quickly. So we did a refresh. We did a reframe, and the way that we attacked it, and I mean that literally, the way that we attacked it is, we began, well, I started with meeting with my leadership team to say, how do you want to do this, guys? What are we gonna do? But it began by, one, concentrating on what we did well. What we did well is we developed programs for people who needed them. Number two is, we had to be able to make it completely a transparent situation so people knew where we were and what we were doing. And so that's just what we did. So for example, with the budget, first thing we did, we opened it up to everybody and said, here's how we're going to attack this, this is what we're going to do, and I want you to know, you can take a look at that budget anytime you want to, so you know where we are. And then with that, I said, it's not my budget, it's your budget. Because if we're gonna be successful, you're gonna wanna make sure that you pull this off. So, through transparency, through the teamwork, good news, 8 years later, we not only made payroll, we took a program that had three programs at a distance, and now they had over 20. We fulfilled the need to be able to put another $500,000 in our savings account and stuff some money other places. So, that's exactly what I would do here in that first quarter. And that is sit down and create a dashboard. Create a dashboard that's very clear in terms of who's responsible for what the outcomes are and what the measures are. And in building that dashboard, I have to sit down with constituents, the community, faculty, staff, the board, students, and then we put that together. And then, within that first quarter, we'll test drive it. And what I mean by that is, I want to sit down with Glenn Dubois, and I want to say, Glenn, sir, here's our dashboard, this is what we're measuring, here are the outcomes, are we on target? And he's calling for us to meet on twice a year. No way, we don't have time for that, we're going to meet on a quarterly basis. I'd need to sit down with faculty and staff and say, here's where we are, did we hit everything, do we need to change it? Sit down with the community, do the same thing, sit down with the board. So that at any point in time, as a community member, as a faculty, that's just an interesting party, you can call up that dashboard to see where we are. That's what I'm gonna do in that first quarter. And by the end of that first year, we'll be good to go. Thank you. Last part of your question. Imagine, well, you don't have to imagine, here's a whiteboard. And I'm sitting down and I'm working with my leadership team, and we're making a strategic plan. But before we even start there, I'm gonna write words that are gonna be assure student success, enhance student success, and engage with the community, because that's what we need to do. So to your question about being a satellite, and I told this to the staff, we need to choose what it is that we have to do. What do we need to take responsibility so that we can do that? There are gonna be some things that we're gonna have to outsource or go with shared services, but everything we share service with, we lower our costs. So we're not gonna lose our identity. What we're gonna be able to do is do what we do best and do well with the students, which will preserve our identity. Thank you.
Yes, sir. President Jenkins.
Richard Jenkins.
Mr. President.
Worked at this institution for 35 years. I've been retired for 14 years. I was both Dean of Student Services and President. The small size of this institution, do you think you really have a good handle, a good feel for the smallness and the economy of scale that exists in an institution this size, the challenges that go with it?
So there's, I guess, a couple of things I want to share with you. You would take a look at my CV, and what you would see, I'm at ODU Northland. You need to go down a couple of other jobs where I've been at North Dakota and I've been at Wyoming. And I gave people this image, and that in Wyoming, we have 90,000 square feet, or square miles to serve, and one sole four-year institution and 450,000 people. The governor said, it's a small town with really long roads. So let's think about Eastern Shore, 45,000 people, and 70 miles tip to tip. Well, it's really a small town with really long roads. So I have a sense of what that's like. And in terms of size, the two divisions that I was responsible for, Wyoming and North Dakota, we had about 50 or 60 people. And we're lean, mean, fighting machines because we were self-support. So I think I have that, at least enough experience that I would go into it with my eyes wide open. Now, having said that, one of the things that incumbent upon me is to come in and listen and see what it is we're doing well. Excuse me, I'm going to have a conversation. See, this is it. This is rolling up your sleeves, folks.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I've got, one, the temperament to do that, but number two, I think I have enough experience with the size of staff and with the complexity of what you're dealing with here. Does that help? And I want everyone to use that small town with really long roads so that it should appear in the paper. Other questions?
Questions? Or Dr. Shaeffer's going to start asking questions of you. Mr. Breach?
I'm Larry Breach, I'm a retired farmer. And
Do farmers really ever retire?
Oh, I get tired twice a day.
My son-in-law's a farmer.
I'm sorry.
And I'm
Use that one.
I'm concerned about leadership and vision.
Yeah.
So my first questions would deal more on a personal level, if you don't mind.
Mhm.
What is an incorrect assumption other people have of you?
A potential incorrect assumption they may have is that I do like to have a good time. In that, as you can tell, as I interact with folks, there's a playfulness to what I do. An incorrect assumption is that that's me all the time. That when I need to be serious, I am. And I'll give you a very specific example. I had an employee who used our computers to be able to lure a teenage person, woman. I brought him into my office, and in no uncertain terms, I said, you have two choices. One is you're going to resign, or I'm going to press charges. There was no doubt where I was and how I felt about that. And I usually get most serious when it comes to dealing with personnel and people, because that's where the rubber meets the road. So I've never had that question before, and I appreciate that, because I may use that one later on.
How would you define your paradigm for progress?
When you say paradigm, are you asking what would be the structure, the thought process, or what are you?
Well, we all are operating under certain paradigms, and our brain likes to take the shortcut and save energy.
Yeah.
And so we enter into habits,
So yeah.
shortcut thoughts.
So thank you for reframing that, restating it, because when I think about a paradigm for success, there are a lot of shortcuts that we could take. And that is that we could just go on the surface here and say, all we're going to really worry about is cost. All we're really going to worry about is the student-faculty ratio. All we're going to be concerned about is, a great example is, we're going to be open 7 days a week. That's one of the things we're supposed to do. My question is why? And if we're supposed to be open 7 days a week, then let's make sure we're offering programming that makes sense to be offering during those 7 days. So my paradigm is actually to start out with what outcomes are we trying to accomplish? The easy part is not to have that conversation. And then the second one, which is even more important, is what are the measurable outcomes we're trying to get to? And in this situation, that's gonna be the bottom line. We've gotta have measures where we're making this progress.
So how do you feel on a comprehensive VOTEC being part of the curriculum here at the community college?
I feel fine about it because I spent my career building workforce development. It's not, I'm at a 4-year institution, but I do a hell of a lot of non-credit. And a good example is working with Ferguson right now. And, you know, Ferguson, the grain tops and those guys, because they're interested in supply chain. And what they want to do is to work with their supply chain individuals, companies, and make them better so Ferguson can be better. So that's has nothing to do with credit, it has everything to do with raising the skills of the people they're working with. So what I would be doing is talking to businesses about what skills do you need, and then talking to the faculty about what sorts of skills can we create with our students.
And for an academic environment, how would you as a leader create what would be your vision for the faculty? How would you impact or define the faculty experience in the community college here?
So I think one of the things with at least what I want to do with the faculty in this reframe is to sit down and see where they are with that and see what approaches we can take in terms of helping them fulfill what their pedagogical goals may be, and at the same time reacting to what we're going to do with the reboot. So how, from an academic point of view, I think that we need to maintain those academic standards. And at the same time, one of the things that one of you may ask is, well, we're an academic institution, but yet we're doing non-credit things. And I think one of the keys in the future is to marry the non-credit things that we're doing with academics so that students really can go down either road at the time. And I'll give you an example of what we've done. And that is we offer boot camps in things like IT, things like R. It's a software that you use for data wrangling. And students can complete that as a non-credit. But if you want to get credit, you work with a faculty member and do more things, and then you get academic credit. That last piece is important for at least 2 reasons. One is it sets the student up to be able to work towards their degree. And number 2 is, and I know it's true here, we have a lot of students who need to have financial aid. It's tough to get financial aid for non-credit, almost impossible. But if it's credit, that can be worked into their own financial aid package. So the key to me is to try to marry those two. And there's plenty of literature out there where it's something that's on the horizon. And I've been doing it now at 3 institutions. But, you know, every time I bring up credit with a non-credit option, or non-credit with a credit option, they're like, wow, how do you do that? You got PeopleSoft who can pull that off. Does that answer your question?
Well, there is no wrong answer. It's just, I wanted to know
No,
your
I agree.
thoughts.
No, and I just wanted to make sure I was at least delving into what it is that you were asking.
Well, part of the reason with my school background stuff, one of the ways that we found that empowers students to achieve more is to have a happy, satisfied faculty. And that only happens if you have quality leadership at the top that empowers them and they feel comfortable, and you get this dialogue going both ways.
Right, and add a layer of the reframe on top of that. And so you're gonna add a layer of, oh my God, what is gonna happen? I'm feeling very insecure because we're going through this. So the job then is to fill the void of lack of knowledge with what's actually gonna happen. And that's what this president needs to do, is to sit down, and I've suggested meeting bi-weekly with the faculty and the staff as we start creating these dashboards, so there is that conversation, and hopefully lowers that level of concern. Yes, ma'am.
Did I understand that you were jointly working in North Dakota and Wyoming at the same time?
Ms. Barron, Ms. Barron, just
Oh, I'm
kindly
sorry.
introduce yourself.
I'm sorry, Sandra Bear. I just met him in
Yeah,
the
we
mall.
met
Oh, okay, gotcha. Thank you.
No, I could not, that would have been impossible.
Yeah, that's why I wondered. Okay, I know a lot about Wyoming, so, what you just talked about sounds like it answers pretty much what my question was. I was just wondering what the most innovative program is that you've implemented, and then based on what you just said, I wondered how you go about it. Is, the non-credit to the credit, is there a lot of state red tape at all that you have to go?
Not that I've asked about.
Oh.
No, and I say that playfully, but to a large extent, it's, the red tape, quite honestly, going back to the faculty, is, does it meet the muster to be able to get credit? And so I meet with the faculty member. By this time, I'm having somebody meet with the faculty member, and we walk through what it is they're doing, the number of seat hours and all that sort of thing. And then we ask the golden question. All right, if we want to offer this for credit, what do we need to add? And the faculty member is the person who makes that determination. So.
And maybe they've already done it here, I don't,
We've
I'm
started
not
that.
familiar, yeah.
That has begun here.
Sorry about that. That
Would,
was
well,
serious.
then would there be any other specific innovative thing that you've done that you've implemented?
I would say, and I don't know how innovative it is, but one of my favorite programs ever was, and then I'm thinking of two of them. I'll stay with developing a program for Fleet Forces Command. And the reason I'll stick with that is I believe this is something that I can bring to this position. And what we did with Fleet Forces is we went out and we talked to them about what they needed. And the key is that, would you turn that off? Every once in a while, it decides that it's an SOS. So where was I? So I'm working with Fleet Forces. We go out and we talk to them. We talk to the Admiral, the Rear Admiral, and we talk to the lead SVS guys. And they tell us what they need. Now, the innovative part is coming. And so we go back, and what institutions of higher ed are really good at is reaching out and telling you, hey, this is what we offer. No. What do you need? That's what we start with. So we took what they said, and then we didn't even come back and say, here are the classes. We came back and we said, here are the learning outcomes that you requested. Are they correct? They made notations, they made changes, they sent it back to us, and then we put together the program. But it all led with understanding what their learning outcomes are. And so we developed what's called the Public Sector Leadership Certificate. And we are offering it to the 4th cohort. We're going to graduate our 80th student in June. What's important about that is we created a program that had stability, sustainability. And the only reason that happened is that we listened and we developed a program for what they wanted.
How would you apply that here, though? You're talking military.
Oh, absolutely, no, I'm gonna go down and I talked to the board today, it's not, that's just an example.
Oh.
Go down and sit down with, you name your business and find out what they
Oh,
need.
yeah.
And then build that. The message I'm giving to you, not very well apparently, the message I'm giving to you is, it's the ability to sit down and understand and pull out from people what it is that they really are talking about.
Yeah.
So I found myself working with Newport News Shipbuilding. And so I started to talk to people who were running apprenticeship programs. And they were saying, we don't have people who are prepared to start the apprenticeship program. And I said, so what's that mean? Well, they don't know how to do math. This is what I do. Really? What does that mean, they don't know how to do math? Well, they don't know how to read a ruler. Really? What does that mean that they don't know how to read a ruler? And so by the time I'm done with that conversation, I've broken it down into multiple learning outcomes. And what do we do in colleges? We develop programming to be able to meet those outcomes. So it doesn't have to be credit, non-credit, whatever. It's the ability to understand what it is that the customer needs.
Maybe nobody asked them, but why in the heck didn't they go back to the high school and ask them why the kid couldn't read the ruler?
Well,
Seems like that's the
I
place to do that.
think you and I should go have some of that urban. And we'll have a chat about how we're gonna deal with that. But you do raise the the high schools. And, you know, we are kind of that, I think, conduit between high schools and where these kids are gonna go.
Yeah.
And we need to embed ourselves, not, no, you know, in the same way we wanna be independent, we don't wanna go to the high schools and say, hey, we got the answer for you. No, what is it that we're doing that can be that pathway? And we talked about one just last night, and that is that you have the culinary arts at the high schools, and yet you have people who are in companies who are in restaurants who are looking for people to be able to work. So where's the disconnect? And we need to somehow fill that pipeline.
Have you ever been at any, I heard somebody talking about, any schools that were, like sort of a community college or an extra 2 years attached to the high school?
Well, I'm aware of some of the things. I mean, Jeff's children are an example where they took dual enrollment.
Oh, yeah, I know, we do. that.
Yeah, so that would be the best example I could give you.
Oh, okay, thank you.
So, no, it's something else, just, we haven't had a chance to talk about it, but one of the things that I have worked on with Fort Eustis, and I will tell you, we've not brought it to fruition because I'm having trouble with the College of Engineering, is that there are, as you well know, a number of installations throughout this area. And one of the things that's happening is that sailors, soldiers, Marines are going through training, and they are picking up skills as they go. And one of the things that's happening is that successful relationships are being made so that when I graduate with my technical driving a bus, that there is an institution out there that says, oh, you've done that, so you've done this course, and this course, so that you can get a head start in moving on your degree program or on your certificate. And I think this is one of the things I'm excited about if I have this opportunity, that community colleges are so well positioned to do that. And I was actually working with Fort Eustis, and they have engineers who are above and engineers who are below, on deck, below deck. And so the sorts of things that they're learning dovetails, I'll tell you, perfectly with some of the stuff that's going on.
Sorry, can I wanted to ask one more question.
You gotta talk to him.
We've had people who've gone across the bay to do that Newport News Apprentice program. And I don't know how if there's a degree or something at the end of that. I'm assuming it's more like art, which turns into a credit, but I wonder
No,
how that is.
that particular one, it is associated with credit, and it can be, actually, it's fascinating because it will be high school, and it can be college.
Oh, yeah.
Now, you raise apprenticeships, and I have been meeting with the folks who run apprenticeships out of Richmond, and they are chomping at the bit to find more partners. I have no idea what apprenticeship opportunities are here, just because I haven't looked. But I'm betting dimes to dollars that there's some things that we might be able to do right here. Yeah, and right now, I don't care about anything but the Eastern Shore.
Thanks.
That and Peggy. I wonder what she's doing now. I think she's on a boat. Here we are, I'm sorry, we're out to eat, and Peggy says something, somehow related to a boat. Jeff's on his phone, setting up a boat trip. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Roberta Newman, we met a
Yes,
little while
Roberta.
ago, current president of the foundation. I would like to ask you for a moment to just pretend that you're coming into a situation where there is no development program. You know that's actually not true, because we had a little
Right,
conversation,
right.
but just for a moment that there isn't one now. So in coming in, could you talk a little bit about what you see as the core goals or mission and goals of a development program at a college like this, and what you think the scope and components of such a program should be? Just 5 minutes.
Yeah, whoa. Let me do some Googling, and I'll get back to you. So, I want to be transparent as I possibly can with you. Fundraising has not been a large part of my portfolio, and so I want you to know that. Why has it not been much? Is that No, what happens is that if you're in the division of continuing ed like I am, I'm offering other people's courses. And so I go to you and say, you clearly care about it because we worked with you. And then I get a call from the college writing some letters saying, oh, I'm sorry, she's ours. All right, so that, but never say die Shaeffer. The way that, what I've concentrated on is working with business and industry, and particularly funding programs for their people. And one of my passions is raising money for non-traditional students. Because if you take a look at scholarships for students, they're usually targeted at 18 to 22-year-olds. And so we have had some success with that. Not huge success, but even that $1,000 or $500 makes a difference between actually finishing your degree. So let's say we didn't have your expertise. So the first thing I need to do is figure out who I can lean on in the community that has those expertise. Because what I need to be successful is an introduction to the people who might be interested in investing in college. And one of those groups I would turn to, I'm going to assume I still have the board, is I would turn to the board because they're going to be that introduction into that group. And so once I had that, then I would gather more information by talking to these individuals in terms of what they might care about. And one of the things that I've been involved with in terms of fundraising is having the programs that people might say, I want to be involved with that. Because now it's not just enough, as you well know, to say, I'm asking for money. No, I want to invest in something I think is important to me. So then we'd have that menu of programs. And then after we were mildly successful, I'd invest in a person who could work with me and make the introductions beyond where we had been. Where I have seen it work very, very well, particularly for a new person, is my friend Jeff Tanner, who's Dean of the College of Business at EDU. And he has somebody who basically has your pulse, fingers on the pulse of the big dingers in the Hampton Roads area. And through those introductions, Jeff has been very, very successful. So that's what I'd be looking for. So the question is, give me the big dingers. That's actually that's from baseball.
Beth?
I'm Beth Perry, faculty in Allied Health, part-time chef.
Thank you for your assistance today. So shout out to your team. Fixed breakfast for
Yes.
Dr. Shaeffer.
And dinner.
And dinner, yeah. Sort of my mantra with my students is, there's three kinds of people in this world. There's those that watch things happen, wonder what happened, and make things happen.
Right.
How, you've kind of talked a little bit about how you would go about assessing, for that with your team.
Mm-hmm.
But how would you manage those three people, three different kinds of people? Those that make it happen, wonder what happened, and watch it happen.
Yeah. It very well could be that the watch it happen may not be with me very long. Because particularly in this situation, we don't really have time to watch it and say, oh my, that's pretty cool, or it's not so cool. The make it happen, those are people that I would empower. I would give them rope and give them responsibility so that they could take that skill and share it with those and be a model for those who, what just happened? And, we can't be made up of all the same people saying, yeah, let's just go make it happen. But I think that we give those people who are in that, have that mentality, and we give them responsibility, and we don't look over their shoulder, they'll be able to use what's best for those people who ask that question later. What just happened? And then they'll say, hey, that's pretty cool, I'm glad I was part of that. That's how I'd work with that.
Thank you.
I want to surround myself with, make this happen.
Other questions?
see people taking notes.
Questions that you may have of the community?
Yes.
So I'm gonna blend together like three of us. One is not here. My name is Joe Beatty. We met briefly
Yes.
before. And I'm involved with entrepreneurial activities here. Working on a couple of different Go Virginia grants, which is an experience.
I want to know more about that.
Be kind.
I will. So I've been in engineering and surveying for 40-some years. And I took out about 8 or 9 years to work in universities because I was very concerned about the form of education for primarily surveying. So I created 2 centers, one in California. And then here, with the help of the land surveyors, we got a line item in the budget and created a center at ODU. I don't know what happened after I left, but that's another story.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. And so I've done a lot of online education, and I turned around the surveying program, which they were going to close, and when I left, we had hired 2 PhDs to replace me. Think about that.
Yeah.
Some other things I did along the way, the land surveyors were very concerned about our apprentice style coming up through the ranks. A more accurate name for that is what New Zealand had, which is cadets, officers in training. And so they had me create a professional mentor program to help those folks, because 85% of our people worked and did this program either part-time or remotely. As a result of all that, we also then attracted VDOT's apprentice program for surveying, which they borrowed from the Northern Virginia Surveyors Apprentice Program. And I bring this up because I had to figure out how to take an apprentice program, take apart the component learnings,
Yep.
and then fit those into our standard academic curriculum so that they could get credit. So I had to build a matrix where they got credit over time for all their work. But the best part is we had to get the Board of Registration to buy off on that. I spent more time on the Board of Registration than any professor before or since
Yeah.
has ever done that. The problem that I see with the community college here is that I'm still not convinced that the population that is accessible to it, many leave to go to bigger schools, is large enough for this to be sustainable. And that goes to a question that Pat Cody asked, which is, most organizations that take a let's cut costs approach ultimately don't succeed, and a lot of this reboot document is about cutting costs. As a past president raised yesterday, it's already a lean machine. You had to close your own door. We didn't have a door monitor to close it for you. And as a president, you may not have a lot of support either, as being able to afford staff. So I believe that we have to figure out how to bring in external dollars by different forms of expertise that we can offer from the shore. And we have the ability now, which we didn't have 20 years ago at community college, for broadband and teaching. There are many people like myself that could teach at a very high level. And we could be known for exporting knowledge, not always importing knowledge. So what do you think of an approach like that? Is that something that you think is viable? Or do you think that the college can be self-sustained here on the shore with its current population?
I don't think we can. We have to find new audiences, and we have to find new programs. Now, those new audiences could be on the shore, they may not be. In the same way that you use distance education to be able to take the surveying program and to take it to a larger audience.
We went to Washington.
Yeah, I think that that's certainly a possibility. Strangely enough, one of the first distance learning programs we started in Wyoming was surveying. And so and the other piece that you left out is not only were you working with the surveyors, you were also working on ABET.
Well, yes, we were the first ones to go through it.
Right, to make sure that you were, accredible. So, number one, what you just described is taking what is needed, breaking it down into modules, and then reflecting those modules into what may be an existing program, existing courses. And that's exactly what I was talking about working with Fort Eustis. I think that that's definitely a very viable. And I think community colleges are actually better positioned to do that. ODU is lucky. California was lucky to have a professor who would take the time to do that. And you know what a rare bird you are in terms of that.
Well, I came out of industry, so I
Well,
understood
that's-
the needs.
Yep.
My fellows that all had doctorate, I have a lot of education, but they lived in that narrow universe. They didn't understand the industry, so they didn't know the questions to ask.
Yeah, so I think it's doable. I think we need to pick and choose where we might be able to do that. We may have to pick and choose and actually develop some expertise that we don't have right now.
If you spend some time on the shore, you're gonna find out that if you need an aircraft carrier designed, we can do it. We have incredible talent
Yeah.
here. But also we have one of the largest aquaculture and most experienced aquaculture groups in the world. That goes to also agriculture. We have a lot of expertise, but they're untapped.
I think you just hit my next remark, and that is that what is it that we're missing? Because as I met with the students today, we have, what, 15 full-time faculty?
Yes.
That's all right. So how are we going to be able to enlarge with 15 full-time faculty? The best way we can do it is to hire adjuncts, and to hire adjuncts with some very specific types of skills. Agriculture would be, one of those that certainly is exportable well beyond the shore. So it really is, this is why it's so important that we have these community meetings, quite honestly, because I don't know where the resources are. You do. And so, let's say, for example, I became president, guess who I'm going to sit down and have a meeting with once I'm here? It's going to be you. And we're going to talk about, now we're going to put our money where our mouth is. How are we going to do this?
Well, the state did give me $50,000 a year to help the surveyors to run my center at ODU.
Yeah, and I want you to, I'll take you out to lunch. And you can order whatever you want. But, we'll do, we've got to pull that out. I mean, and it's going to be in conversations like this. And back to your very, very first question. Yes, I think this can be done, and I think it's not only sustainable, but I think that we can create that model of what it means to serve a small, sparsely populated rural area with a community college. I mean, I really embrace that as the challenge, what we can do here. But it's going to be, as I said in my presentation, really is going to be done only if we work together and actually listen to each other. And that's going to be job one for this new president. And I'm more pumped about this job the more I talk to people like you, because that means there are assets that are sitting out there that I didn't know about. And so I'm going to run back. I'm one of the worst at this, just so you know this. Probably shouldn't do this, but if I go off and I have a great conversation, my tendency is to come back and say, okay, how are we going to do this? Let's talk about this. And the response is going to be, Jim, we're already in over our heads. I said, I got that. But how are we going to do this? And get them excited so we can come back and see what we can do with you. I think the key to making this all work really is going to be the dedication that the community brings times the dedication the staff brings. And I'm not going to look to Glenn Dubois to say, hey, I'm going to help you do that. No, we're going to do this on our own. And we're going to shape it so it is going to be what we are at Eastern Shore, even though we may have to use other people's resources. I looked at you, that didn't mean you had a chance to ask a question. Thank you for that.
I took that opportunity. Doctor, you have been chosen as the president. You finished your first week. You've had your meeting with staff. Give me a brief outline of how that meeting went.
Well, first of all, there's going to be not one meeting after that first week. I am dedicated to and convinced that what's needed is not for me to go and make another presentation like I did today. Because one of the things I learned is that people nod their head, and then when I ask them questions, they do this, And yet they have some things to say. So that first week is gonna be probably 10 to 20 people that I'm gonna sit down and talk to. And fit into my schedule. It's gonna be one-on-ones. And so out of that first 10 or 12 or 20, to your question, it's gonna be, okay, here are the ideas. Here are some passions that people have. Here are some hopes and dreams that people have. Now, how does that fit with what we have to do? How can I call on this? And what are some things that this person is gonna be a good fit for and not gonna be a good fit for? And I'm also gonna learn, okay, some people are gonna need, I'm gonna put it this way, a little bit more attention, because we can't afford to lose them, so we wanna make sure that they're gonna be at ease as we move this forward. So that's what I want in those first couple of weeks, is to actually, and the staff is of such a size that it can be done. But I think it has to be done.
Just to give you an example of why I asked that question. When I first became sheriff years and years and years ago, my first week, my first meeting with my command staff, I had the entire command staff in my office. And they had them lined in front of the desk, we're seated, and I went one after another. Give me your first biggest, your two top concerns that you had in your division. Went through the line, came back to the first one. Give me two solutions to each one, to each of your concerns. Nothing.
Yeah.
I ended the meeting, don't you ever do this again. I want you to be a part of this agency, rebuilding the agency, solving the issues. So never come to me again with a problem without solutions. They appreciated that. They really appreciated that because they had never had that before. And that's why I asked the question.
No,
It allows the team to be a part of the reboot and solving the solutions. And when you allow the team to be a part of the solution, they get embedded.
No, and that's exactly what I hope I'm describing to you.
You did.
Yeah, I promise I'm not gonna say, don't ever come to me again.
But bring solutions when they do.
Bring solutions, right, and, you know, there's gonna come a time, I wanna be honest, there's gonna come a time where we're gonna have players and we're gonna have non-players. And some tough decisions are gonna have to be made. But as a leader, I need to let people have that opportunity to play. You know, when I was in junior high, I was probably a little bit better basketball player than the coach's son, but the coach's son played. And I want people to have that opportunity.
Thank you.
You talked about adjunct teachers. I'd suggest, I don't know, maybe Joe or somebody here knows, but there's an archive, but we have a science and philosophy group that meets. I'd suggest if you can go, just this year, and you see the people from here and what they're talking about. It would really give you, and most of them are retirees from away, I will say that, but it's just amazing the different subjects and things like that that you'll find where we have expertise. So
I appreciate that, and I've no doubt that that's the case when I think of people who've decided to come here or people who've decided to stay here. And just have to think of the people that I had dinner with last night. I mean, the expertise, PhDs, MDs that are here. But I need help finding them. We need help finding them. I mean, and that's part of our discussions, guys. It's gonna be, you know, who are we using for adjuncts? And, go ahead.
I have a question very much related to that. So we talk all the time about onboarding students. What are your ideas around or thoughts about best practices for onboarding faculty and staff? And when I say faculty, we say instructors, whatever the ranks are, workforce training, because it is a blurring and a blending now. So we do have a large talent pool. We know that. It's untapped in some ways. But how do you onboard these people?
Tracy, you've met Dr. Shaeffer? Okay.
Sorry, but I am Teresa Guy, Career Pathways Program Coordinator.
So I think that, you know, we would look at best practices in terms of onboarding. I want to start by asking you, how are you onboarding folks?
You want that now? Oh, no.
No, I mean, send it to me.
All right.
I want to know what evaluation tools are you using to determine whether or not they can become adjuncts. I want to know, what are you doing to evaluate them after they've done that teaching? And are we tracking who's doing a good job and who isn't? So in terms of onboarding, got to understand how it's being done now, and if there are ways to improve it, let's do that. the other piece of that is that onboarding, and I'm glad you said what you did about, I don't care if it's non-credit or credit, they need to have an opportunity for professional development before we put them in the classroom. We do our students a disservice by not providing them that.
Time for one more question, and then we'll wrap up.
Tell him he said I could. My question is,
I said you could.
I think one of the most important words in the name of this organization, this institution, is community.
Yes.
And so, given the fact that we have really quite a diverse community, even though we're in a rural area, how would you try to really inspire and bring together and create an atmosphere on this campus where all these diverse people would feel like it's a community?
So I want to be clear, there is no silver bullet to that huge question you just asked. But I do want to tell a quick story. So I'm meeting with the faculty and the staff, and I'm saying, hey, I met with the board, and one of the board members walks in, and he's got a t-shirt on, he's got shorts, and he looked just comfortable. So I'm walking by Amy Shockley's room. Oh, I want you to know that's my husband. So I know it's a community.
I thought you were describing Jeff.
That's on a good.
Change the clothes in the van.
So to your point, how do you build that? You model it. You know, and that's, I'm listening to what the board members had to say. They're saying we should be having more of these forums. And because there is some misunderstanding out there, and we need to fill that void. And so you kind of model that behavior in terms of making it available to folks. And if we ever reach a point where we have these things and nobody shows up, well, that tells me either we're doing it wrong or maybe we're getting to a point that's good. I think the other piece of that, and this is where I really want people to think about that new building. I had a chance to tour it today. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. And that new building needs to be part of the rebrand of this college. It needs to be, and you know, I'm kind of a dreamer, but you know, there are things that are going to go into that we can use to rebrand. Whether it's, you know how much sunshine is going to come into that thing? Why can't we use that? We're going to let the sun come in. And windows do funny things. You can go both ways. So, and then you walk down the hallway, and there, I don't know if you haven't seen this yet, but there are windows into the labs. So we're going to be transparent. So I mean, there are just some things that are going to happen with that new building that, as I explained it, like it's going to be like a slingshot, because it's going to be, we're going to stretch that rubber band, get planned, get ready to go. Bill's got it all mapped out by the hour, and we're going to use that to get the staff excited, we're going to use that to get the community excited, we're going to use it to get the students excited. And that, to me, that's the ace in the hole for a lot of the things you talked about. There's a keystone over the top. And that's very symbolic in terms of what we can use as a new facility to. A keystone, a gathering.
Transition from that response into your wrap-up.
Oh, my. You guys asked some really tough questions. And I don't think I've ever had a question that started with paradigm. I'll wrap it up like this. I've spent 2 days talking to the community. And I've been kind of poking holes, trying to find out where are there chinks in the armor. You know, we talk about it is a community. We talk about faculty and staff that are ready to step up to this thing. We talk about how important this is, and I'm just keep looking for something that says that's not really true. And I can tell you to a person, what I've found is it is very true. That this is a community, and that the importance of this college to the community is obviously very high. And whoever comes in as your president, because whether I'm still at ODU, I've always been your champion because of my experiences, and I do wish you the very best, because you really do have this great opportunity to reframe and to refresh and to make this opportunity. So thank you.
So once again, we thank each of you for coming out. A very important decision that the board has to make on behalf of the community. So your feedback is vital. We want to hear from each and every one of you in the room today, except for Dr. Shaeffer.
I
volunteered
to fill all my.
Judith, make sure you don't get one from Dr. Shaeffer.
Yeah.
So, okay, and so follow the link on the website. If you're digitally inclined to do so. The comment period for Dr. Shaeffer is open until 4 o'clock tomorrow. We transition to the end of an exciting week here at the college, but not just the interviews, but we have commencement Friday. Put that on your calendar if you're otherwise not planning to come. Come at 4 o'clock. Probably the most exciting day for the community college every year. We'd love to have you there as well. And resultingly, stay tuned. We'll make sure that we are transparent as far as the overall decision ultimately. That will result from a joint meeting with the Chancellor and the local advisory board of the Eastern Shore Community College. We wouldn't be here without you. We want to take and be the best stewards that we can be for each of you. So we thank you for coming out today. Please fill out those survey forms, those feedback forms, and we look forward to prompting back to you all probably by worst case the beginning of next week, the result of this overall very thorough process. So thank each of you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
People are-